The night of the Blood Moon Ball, the great hall of Voldemar Castle glowed with silver light. Hundreds of guests filled the room, dressed in their finest clothes, waiting for the moment the Alpha King would choose how his reign would be remembered. No one expected what actually happened. Elara stood near the back wall, dressed in a plain gray uniform, carrying a tray of drinks. She was a servant, one of dozens who worked in the castle kitchens, and she had no family name that mattered to anyone in that room. She kept her eyes low, her steps quiet, and her presence invisible, exactly the way she liked it. She had learned long ago that being unnoticed was safer than being seen. Then Alpha King Draven Voldemar walked past her, and the entire world seemed to stop. A sharp pull moved through her chest, so strong it nearly knocked the tray from her hands. She looked up and found him already staring at her, his golden eyes wide with shock. The noise of the ballroom faded into a distant hum. For one long moment, nothing else existed except the two of them. Draven felt it too. The mate bond, the ancient connection every wolf feared and hoped for, had chosen this servant girl with no past and no name. He stood frozen, his heart pounding, torn between wonder and disbelief. Whispers spread through the hall like fire through dry grass. Nobles turned to each other, confused and uneasy. A king's mate was supposed to come from a powerful bloodline, someone who could stand beside him with strength and status, not a servant who cleaned floors and carried trays. Kale, the king's cousin and closest advisor, stepped forward with a calm smile that did not reach his eyes. He leaned toward Draven and spoke in a low voice. "My king, this cannot be real. She could be a spy, a trick sent by our enemies to weaken you from within. You must be careful." The seed of doubt took root instantly. Draven had ruled Voldemar since he was young, and he had learned that trust was a luxury dangerous men could not always afford. He looked at Elara again, searching her face for any sign of deception, but all he found was confusion and fear, which he mistook for guilt. "Take her to the gates," Draven said, his voice hard and cold. "I reject this bond. She is banished from Voldemar, effective tonight." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elara's tray slipped from her hands, crashing to the floor. She stared at him, waiting for him to take it back, waiting for this to be some terrible joke, but his expression remained stone, and two guards stepped forward to escort her out. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I didn't do anything." Draven did not answer. He turned away, unable to look at her, telling himself this was necessary, this was protection, this was what a king must do. He did not see the way her hands trembled, or the tears she refused to let fall in front of the crowd that had just watched her entire life shatter. The guards walked her through the castle gates and left her outside in the cold night air, alone with nothing but the clothes she wore and a small wolf pendant hanging around her neck. The only thing she had left from her mother, who had died when Elara was a child. She had never known what the pendant meant. She only knew it was hers, and now, it was the last piece of home she carried with her. She walked until her legs gave out, then kept walking anyway. She had no pack, no protection, and no idea where to go. Eventually, she reached a small village near the northern border, far enough from Voldemar that no one recognized her face. She found work at an inn, cleaning rooms and serving meals, rebuilding a quiet life from nothing. Months passed. Elara built walls around her heart, refusing to think about golden eyes or the ache that never fully left her chest. She told herself the bond meant nothing if he did not want it. She told herself she was better off alone. Some nights, she almost believed it. Back in Voldemar, things were falling apart in ways no one could explain. The ancient pact that gave the Alpha King his strength had begun to weaken. Draven, who had once commanded his warriors with unmatched power, found himself growing tired more easily, his senses dulling, his connection to the land itself fading like a candle running out of wax. His advisors grew nervous. Whispers of an unstable throne spread through the kingdom, and enemies who had once feared Voldemar began to test its borders. Desperate for answers, Draven summoned the royal seer, an old woman named Mirelle, who had served 3 generations of kings before him. She arrived at the castle wrapped in gray robes, her eyes clouded with age, but sharp with knowledge. "Tell me why my power is failing," Draven demanded. Morel studied him for a long moment before speaking. Your power was never truly yours alone, my king. It is tied to the founding bloodline of Voldemar, the first Alpha Queen who built this kingdom beside her king centuries ago. The throne only holds its strength when the true heir stands within these walls. The bloodline was lost generations ago, Draven said. Everyone knows that. Everyone was told that, Morel corrected gently. The truth was hidden to protect the last heir from those who wished to erase her family for their own gain. Draven's chest tightened with a terrible feeling. Who was hidden? Morel's eyes did not blink. A woman with a wolf pendant passed down through her mother's line. A woman you banished from this kingdom with your own voice. The room seemed to spin around him. Ilara, the servant girl, his mate, the heir he had thrown away without a second thought. He remembered the pendant around her neck, the one he had barely noticed that night, too consumed by doubt to see what was right in front of him. Shame crashed over him like a wave, followed immediately by fear. If Cale had known, if anyone else discovered the truth before he could reach her, she would be in terrible danger. Where is she now? He asked, though he already feared the answer might come too late. He did not wait for a full answer. He gathered a small group of his most trusted guards and rode out of the castle that same night, following rumors and old trade routes, refusing to rest until he found her. Meanwhile, in the northern village, Ilara's quiet life was about to unravel in a different way. A stranger arrived at the inn one afternoon, introducing himself with a warm smile and gentle manners. He said his name was Cale, a traveling merchant, interested in old bloodlines and forgotten histories. Ilara, cautious but lonely, found herself drawn into conversation with him over several visits. He seemed to understand pain and rejection in a way that felt familiar, and slowly, he began asking questions about her mother, her past, and the pendant she always wore. She did not know he was the king's cousin. She did not know he had been searching for her long before Draven ever left the castle. That pendant is beautiful, Cale said one evening, his eyes lingering on it a moment too long. Do you know its history? No, Ilara admitted. It belonged to my mother. She never explained it before she died. Cale's smile widened just slightly. I might be able to help you find answers, if you're willing to trust me. Something in his tone made her hesitate, a quiet warning she could not quite name. But loneliness had worn down her guard, and the promise of understanding her own history was tempting in a way she could not resist. She agreed to travel with him the following week, unaware that Cale's true plan was to use her blood to seize control of Voldmar's throne, then eliminate her once she was no longer useful. Draven arrived in the village 3 days later, following the scent of the bond that had never truly disappeared, no matter how hard he had tried to ignore it. He found the innkeeper, who mentioned a merchant named Cale, who had been asking strange questions about a young woman with a wolf pendant. Draven's blood ran cold. He knew exactly what his cousin was capable of. He tracked them to a quiet crossroads just outside the village, arriving as Cale was helping Ilara onto a horse, ready to leave for the capital under false promises. Draven's voice cut through the evening air like thunder. Ilara, stop. Don't go with him. She turned, startled, her heart lurching painfully at the sight of him. Anger and hurt rose in her chest immediately. Why would I listen to you? You banished me. You made it very clear what you thought of me. I was wrong, Draven said, stepping closer, ignoring the guards Cale had brought with him. I let fear and bad advice control my judgment, and I hurt you because of it. But you are in danger right now, and I need you to trust me, even if just for a moment. Cale's calm expression finally cracked. Don't listen to him, Ilara. He rejected you once already. He'll do it again the moment it benefits him. She's the last blood heir of Voldemar, Draven said, never taking his eyes off Ilara. The throne's power comes from her line, not mine alone. Cale knows this. His family tried to erase yours generations ago, so his bloodline could rise instead. He isn't here to help you find your past. He's here to use you, then remove you once you're no longer needed. Ilara's breath caught. Pieces began falling into place, small comments Cale had made, questions that felt too specific, too calculated. She looked at the pendant in her hand, then at the man who claimed to want to help her, and finally understood the fear she had felt without naming it. Cale's mask fell away completely. It doesn't matter what she believes. I've waited long enough for what should have been mine. He lunged forward, but something inside Elara answered before fear could take over. A warmth spread through her chest, old and powerful, rising from a part of herself she had never known existed. Her wolf, dormant for her entire life, finally woke, recognizing the call of her ancestors and the danger threatening the very kingdom that carried her name. She moved instinctively, meeting Kale's attack with a strength she did not know she possessed, while Draven fought beside her, no longer trying to protect her from a distance, but standing with her as an equal. Together, they overpowered Kale and his men, exposing his betrayal in front of the guards who had accompanied him, guards who quickly turned against him once the truth became impossible to deny. When it was over, Elara stood breathless in the moonlight, her body trembling from the sudden awakening of power she had never asked for. Draven approached slowly, giving her space, no longer assuming he had any right to her trust. "I am sorry," he said quietly, "not because my power is failing without you, but because I judged you before I ever truly saw you. You deserved better than that, no matter who your bloodline turned out to be." Elara studied him for a long moment, feelings of anger and longing tangled together inside her. "You banished me without asking a single question. You believed I was dangerous because I had no name worth protecting." "I know," Draven said, "and I cannot undo that. I can only try to earn something different from you now, if you'll let me." She did not answer right away. Trust could not be rebuilt in a single conversation, no matter how sincere the apology sounded. But something had shifted inside her during the fight, a strength she recognized as entirely her own, separate from him, separate from the bond, separate from anyone's expectations of who she should be. They returned to Voldmar together, though not as strangers pretending nothing had happened. The seer confirmed what Draven already knew. Ilara's blood carried the true founding line of the kingdom, and the moment the truth was revealed publicly, the ancient pact began to heal, the land itself responding to the return of its rightful heir. Elara was crowned Queen of Voldmar not as a gift from Draven, but as her own birthright, restored after generations of hidden history. She ruled with the same quiet strength that had carried her through banishment and loneliness, earning the respect of a kingdom that had once dismissed her as nothing more than a servant. Draven did not assume her forgiveness or her loyalty. He worked to earn both, slowly, through actions rather than words, allowing her the space to decide for herself whether their bond was something worth building again. Months later, standing together on the castle balcony as the kingdom celebrated below, Elara finally reached for his hand, not because fate demanded it, but because she chose it, on her own terms, as the queen she had become, rather than the mate he had once cast aside. The kingdom's magic settled fully into place that night, not from the power of the bond alone, but from the strength of a woman who had rebuilt herself from nothing and returned to claim a throne that had always been hers.